Hello, everybody. James Williams here, other Southern California News Group, and I'm happy to be joined here today by my colleague and USC beat reporter, Luca Evans. Luca, what's going on, man?
Hey James, thanks for having me. Excited to dive in here.
No worries at all. It's always a fun week when it comes to USC and UCLA. I know it's your first year on the beat covering USC, but how are you? Is this your first time attending the rivalry game? What do you know, kind of going in, just from a historical standpoint, as someone who may have just been watching casually prior to this year?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be my first time really experiencing the rivalry. So I'm excited for the atmosphere. I know there's been plenty of debates between fans for years on who's got the better tailgates and
Mm,
of course I know the stories of we were all all well aware and saw the sword
yes, right.
being duct taped. So
Hmm.
it's clear. I think the interesting thing for me though is like, are we really going to get the full taste of the rivalry this year?
Yeah.
I was looking back, and I think there were three times in the last, like, I can't, it was like since 2007 or something like that. Like the last 17 years, obscure statistic, but like there are three times that neither of these teams came into this rivalry game unranked. And so I
Mm,
think you could like make the argument that this game, just in terms of pure what it means, is one of like the lowest stakes matchups
yeah.
in a long time. So it'll be interesting to see from that viewpoint.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned it. So I guess I've been covering UCLA for about, I guess I'm on year five because Chip Kelly's year six. So I was there for his second year. So I'm year five. So I've been to a few of these. Last year was great. I believe it was like 68,000, 70,000 at the Rose Bowl.
Mhm.
Good crowd. The year before, it was kind of similar where it was kind of like 1 p.m. start. The crowd wasn't fully into it, or wasn't fully there. With everything going on the 10 freeway, I wonder how much of an impact that may have on things. And obviously, I believe we might be getting some rain for this game, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, that'll
Um,
be yeah. That's we were
you never
out
know.
we were out at practice and with daylight savings. It was dark
Hmm.
yesterday, and we
Yeah.
we talked to players at night, and it was raining, and it started picking up, and it was like we were all just soaked
Hmm.
and just talking to players with our phones. It was pretty funny. But anyway, yeah, that'll be interesting. See if the climate picks up.
Yeah, so we'll see how things play out on the field in terms of the weather and everything else. But let's get into it. Just looking into the rosters, I'll let you go ahead and start. But um, any notable injuries going into this game? How are the guys doing health wise over there for USC?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. The main thing is kind of the health of the secondary. I believe Lincoln Riley said Monday on Trojans Live, the weekly sort of radio show. Jalen Smith and well, Jalen Smith was the starting nickelback.
Mhm.
Missed last game with injury. Said he was hopeful that he's going to be back. And Jacoby Covington, who's been out for a few games, but made an impact previously at cornerback, looks like he might be back. USC needs it desperately. These things got so dire last game that they're playing guys who had played minimal snaps all year. I think they started Traquan Fagans at nickel. I don't think they started him actually, but they played him a significant amount of snaps at nickel. Started Prophet Brown at cornerback. I think they played a total of 81 snaps all year before that. So, you know, that'll be a big boost. Yeah, I think that's those are the notable kind of that's the notable area of health for USC right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, when you talk about
Yeah.
notable positions for UCLA, it has to be the quarterback position. Unlike USC, where they are pretty secure and locked in at quarterback. There's been a rotating system deal. I don't know. It's been a mess on the UCLA side, but Colin Shlee, the Kent State transfer, who made his first start for UCLA. last week against Arizona State. Played throughout the game, but had been dealing with some injuries as far back as camp, and then even again during the season. But yeah, suffered an injury, got knocked out of the game. They had to have Chase Griffin come in for the final series or two, but Garbers and or Ethan Garbers and Dante Moore were both listed as emergency kind of, or Chip Kelly had them listed as in case of emergency, break glass here, have these guys play. Those had been your two main starters most of the way, so I guess you'll lean on those guys. Ethan Garbers was walking with a limp last week, so they're literally kind of limping into this thing. If I have to take a guess, I would imagine maybe Dante Moore starting unless Garbers is fully healthy, but remains to be seen. I know Colin Schlee hasn't really been practicing. Chip Kelly said he was available yesterday, which was Wednesday, and he actually just was there in a shirt. So so remains to be seen. Any other notable injuries for you? If not, we'll head on to the next question.
So, well, I wanted to, so I was curious. I'm sure we'll
Sure.
touch on this, but with
Mhm.
the uncertainty around Chip Kelly's job status,
Mhm.
we'll put it that way. Do you think there's a chance if Chip gets fired? What do you think that the probability of Dante Moore transferring is? Because I know I've been seeing some stuff
Yeah.
about that. I know he came to UCLA for in a lot of reasons the faith in Chip and
Mhm.
I don't know. Do you see potentially him transferring out? Do you think he'll probably stay at UCLA in that event? What do you think about that?
That actually leads to what my next question was going to be as far as what's at stake for UCLA. Yeah.
Yeah,
The status of Chip Kelly and his job status is definitely more or less on the line here, depending on how this game turns out, and then just the kind of fallout that will happen as a result of that. Right, one of the biggest ones is you have a 5-star prospect. Dante Moore comes in, one of the highest rated prospects in the program's history, according to 24/7 Sports. So Dante Moore was a big get. Now he may only be there throughout this season and may move on because, as you mentioned, yeah, one of the first times we even talked to Dante, we said, hey, what was it about UCLA that ended up being the right fit for you? Obviously was committed to Oregon for some time. Kenny Dillingham decides to go to ASU and become the head coach. You have Bo Nix return, and he's having a Heisman-like season. So for Dante, yeah, I mean, he had said, Chip, who else would you rather want to work under in terms of and learn from in terms of offense than a guy like Chip Kelly if you had to find a home somewhere, right? So if Chip Kelly's not there, I don't know if Dante Moore is going to be there. That remains to be seen. Yeah, one thing, and maybe you can answer this. I have to look into it a little bit more. If he transfers, does it fall under his first transfer, or does it fall under, hey, they got a new coach? Because if they some of them are able to transfer if
good
they have a
question.
new coach. So that's something I have to look into because maybe Dante could play chess while the rest of us are trying to play checkers over here. But yeah, it kind of remains to be seen. From what we've seen from some other reports, a lot of guys are just kind of unhappy in general, and maybe leaving in some sort of mass exodus regardless. So I think if there's not the talent around the way that there is for Dante this year, then yeah, I think it could be likely that he's on his way out. Um, but yeah, what about for USC? What's at stake for you guys kind of coming into this game?
I think for USC, kind of a whole little bit of a separate set of circumstances. I don't think
Hmm.
there's not going to be some sort of mass exodus. There are a few guys who I'm sure are going to, hit the road for the portal after the year. But I think really, and you think, oh, the focus is probably on Chip's job status this game. But
Hmm.
I think the biggest thing for USC is, this could maybe be Caleb Williams' last game. And a guy a lot of people call generational prospect and, has brought a lot of pride, a lot of notoriety, I suppose, back to USC's program. Not that
Hmm.
didn't plenty exist
Right.
previously, but just sort of reinvigorating the fan base. And I mean, it's interesting. He said yesterday hadn't made a decision on it, probably going to take some more time over Thanksgiving. Lincoln Riley said hadn't talked to Caleb about it, so everything sort of kind of hush hush at the moment. But I there was sort of, with the rain and just some of the
Mm,
comments, just felt like the realization of setting in, like, man, this could be the last time that you know Caleb Williams talks in front of this USC
right.
practice backdrop on Wednesday. So, I mean, it could bring about the end to one of the best careers by a college quarterback in recent memory. And if that's true, if Caleb Williams decides to head for the draft and forego both a bowl game and his third season potentially at USC, I mean, that just opens up a whole host of questions for the program where Caleb Williams has it's like that like Flex Seal tape meme, the guy
Right.
like slapping
Yeah.
it on the tank and the water coming out. It's like he's elevated this program and covered up so many kind of issues here and there as
Hmm.
a generational quarterback talent will do. And without that, be interesting to see what USC is left with. They've got pretty capable backup in Miller Moss. They've got another 5-star guy, Malachi Nelson, waiting in the wings. Unclear if maybe he'll be ready yet next year. It's the question of, do they bring in another guy from the transfer portal, which Lincoln Riley said, there's no one way or the other, but it's possible. So
Hmm.
I mean, that's just a major question for the future of the program. And then also Lincoln Riley has said, he expects the defense to take a big step forward this week. You're week 2, removed from the Alex Grinch firing, and going into a big, couple of weeks to see who will be next, USC's next coordinator at that position. So I think those are really kind of what's at stake for USC, not so much in this game, but just kind of a look ahead to what the future of this program could be.
Yeah, and speaking of the Trojans relieving Grinch of his duties, that was actually one of my questions for you is where is the defense kind of at right now? You said, they can kind of take a step here in week 2 with the new group of guys they have kind of running that defense, but you're not really installing a whole lot of X's and O's, new plays, new schemes or scheme or anything like that. So what is the mood or what is the kind of the vibe you're getting from some of the guys when you're able to talk to them during media availability?
Yeah, I think the sense is Brian Odom, Sean Nua, the co-interim defensive coordinators, maybe been able to simplify things a little bit. They've both obviously talked about they're not reinventing the wheel here. They don't want to confuse guys with concepts, what have you. But we saw, it takes time. The ship won't just be righted by the absence, of one individual. It's still the same kind of scheme and just major issues that we've seen all year last week against Oregon, with big plays, giving up explosive plays in the secondary. Um, a lot of miscommunication, it looked like at times. You had guys, holding their hands out after
Mm,
touchdowns, what have you, that just kind of emblematic of this, you know, year's defensive performance as a whole. And
right.
um the thing, that the one, tiny silver lining was their run defense did look a little bit improved against, one of the best rushing attacks in the country, really. I think the biggest thing against UCLA, and it'll be tough to kind of judge really how much this defense is improved by the quality of the unit it's playing against. Because,
Yeah.
I'll transition that into a question for you, but just about, I mean, what's UCLA's offense, looking like at this point? There's been a lot of chatter. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. It's like the narrative has completely flipped
Hmm.
from the bad years of Chip Kelly defenses to now's offense. It just seems like it can't score on anyone. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been kind of wild. So I guess the last 3 weeks they have seen a decrease in production just in terms of like the amount of points they've been able to put on the scoreboard. Again, it has been kind of interesting because when you had a 5-year guy at quarterback, like DTR who provided a level of consistency, you're not getting that just with the injuries and the inexperience at times from what you have now at the quarterback position. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where the struggles have been, is just with the quarterback position. You have two solid guys back there in the backfield with um, Carson Steele and TJ Harden. I think it's important for them to get those guys going, and then if it does open up a little bit, maybe allow yourself to get the passing game going. But they haven't been able to even take advantage of the talent that they acquired out of the transfer portal. So 2 years, so last before before this 2022 season, they put a heavy emphasis on grabbing guys out of the transfer portal and really building up that defense to what we've seen it to be now. And we'll probably talk about the defense here in a minute. But they spent this past or before this season, they spent the off season through the transfer portal building up this offense, right? And well, trying to build up the offense. They went and got the Cal receiver, J. Michael Sturdivant. They got USC receiver Kyle Ford, and you think those guys are going to come in and be some game changers for you, and it just hasn't been there. And I think it all just kind of goes back to what's been going on at quarterback, because and maybe you can, and sometimes I hate even saying that, because for a guy like J. Michael Sturdivant, sometimes it's a matter of he's just such a focal point for opposing defenses that they try to just take him out of the game completely. So
Sure.
it's hard to, so I wouldn't go as far as to call him a bust, but you're looking for a guy to be the deep threat that sometimes has been missing in UCLA's offense in recent years and stuff like that. And J. Michael was supposed to be that guy, but it just hasn't been there for them. They've been leaning on Logan Loya, the St. John Bosco product, as a guy that's been pretty consistent for them. They do also have Carson Ryan. They've been leaning on the tight end position again, which is not a surprise. They've been doing it in the past with Chip Kelly here at UCLA. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do kind of get it together. I'm not sure how they've done against tight ends this year, but Carson Ryan, excuse me. There's a few Carsons on this team, but Carson Ryan is one that I would expect to maybe find his way into the end zone and scoring for the Bruins. But again, that's just a matter of if they're able to even establish the passing game. But I think it'll all start with what they can do with the run game there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see too, how I think one of the big things that you know, identified for why the season just fell apart so
Mm-hmm.
catastrophically since, past couple months for USC is just, the defensive line was supposed to and looked for about 3 weeks like it was a legitimately improved unit. You brought in transfers. Solomon Byrd was making a huge leap. Jamil Muhammad came in as a big transfer addition. Bear Alexander making a huge impact at nose tackle. And they were generating a ton of pressures. And then I think about midway through the Colorado game, it was almost like Shadur Sanders kind of, at least Colorado's offense, figured out, that they needed to get the ball out quick.
Right.
And since then, there was a clear noticeable change in that game. And since then, just the overall pressure that they've generated as a unit has just fallen off a cliff. And, you can kind of trace a line correspondingly to where their season has gone. Because if they're giving other quarterbacks time to throw, there's just not enough consistent talent in that secondary to overcome that. So I think that'll be a key kind of point of emphasis in this game to see if the line can kind of salvage a little bit of that early season juice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you see as kind of key points from UCLA's point of view?
Yeah, actually, so one thing for me, this is definitely a matchup to watch for me, is I'm curious to see how guys up front for UCLA's defensive line, which has been for the most part spectacular all year, led by
Right.
Liatu Latu, how they do against against Caleb Williams, just because Caleb Williams is, you think he's running out of bounds and he just manages to turn his arm some sort of miraculous way to get it to receiver and end up making a big chunk play or something along those lines. But I'm just curious to see what kind of pressure that they are able to apply to him. I mean, they've been able to do so against guys like Shador Sanders and other guys this season, but I think Caleb Williams is just on another level. But Liatu Latu has been solid. The Murphy twins have been solid as well. I think the one thing for me is those guys, sometimes they need to kind of keep the emotions in check. Chip Kelly's always talking about, playing with emotion and not letting emotion play with you. I think that continues to be a work in progress for some of the guys on the front line. But with a guy like Liatu Latu, his goal at the beginning of the season was to get 15 sacks, and he has 11 currently. Now, I think the one thing to also keep in mind was I think Liatu Latu said himself is that he's excited to play against some of the Pac-12 conference being this, with all the spotlight being on the offenses and the quarterbacks, Bo Nix, Penix, Caleb Williams. He said whenever he gets an opportunity to play against guys like that, that's what he's kind of striving for, and that's what he's kind of thriving off of, or that's kind of the motivation there for him. So I think he'll definitely be playing up for this game. And I guess my question to you is, how has the offensive line held up, and where have they been with opposing pass rushes and trying to stop those and kind of keeping Caleb Williams clean when he does stay in the pocket?
Let me tell you, I feel like if his goal was 15 sacks, he's at 11.
You think he's hitting it?
I don't know about the bowl game, but you could get a couple
Hmm.
against USC, and that's not to disparage. I do think their offensive line has been pretty steady for the most part
Hmm.
this season, but steady, and they'll give up pressures.
Right.
The I couldn't believe my eyes when I checked the stats from Oregon USC, speaking to both, just how much USC got out physical, but Oregon generated 23 pressures and USC generated 3. So there was
Eesh.
just a complete um a flip-flop in that. The line, there had been some struggles. They had a notable kind of switch. Michael Tarquin, who was the starter at right tackle, got benched. They moved Jarrett Kingston, who was the right guard, to right tackle, and they put backup Mason Murphy in at right guard. Whole, formation switch there. And since then, it worked for a couple games. But Oregon really, again, just out physical, manhandled them on the offensive line. I expect, you could see the same from UCLA's front. Caleb Williams played like the most unhinged game of football that I've maybe seen a quarterback play against
Right.
Oregon. He resorted to simply running 360 degrees in the opposite
Right.
direction, in the pocket, outside of the pocket, going back in the pocket, going outside. It was just yeah, I mean, backyard football with that guy. I expect he'll probably, be running away from Latu for
Hmm.
multiple times this game.
And I don't blame him, because I think there'd be quite a few people who are running away from Latu if they see a guy of his size and caliber coming their way. So I don't blame Caleb Williams at all.
Yeah, and so I think pretty big test for the line again. It'll be curious to see, I think, from USC's perspective. There's some young guys in the wings who haven't really gotten much of an opportunity this year. A few transfer guys who have been pretty steady all year, but there's only so high of a ceiling there. So maybe you see a little bit, a few fresh faces to try things out on the offensive line this game. Not sure, but yeah, I'm betting Latu still has a chance at that 15 mark. So yeah.
And just as we kind of wrap things up here, again, make sure you guys follow our coverage. We are covering both sides of it pretty well, both USC and UCLA, all season long. And as the season kind of finishes up here at ocregister.com. But Luca, how do you see this game playing out? What do you think that the keys to victory are for USC?
I think I see USC matching up pretty well with UCLA. From my point of view, I don't think. I mean, it's kind of a case of two really struggling units going head to head, and
Yes.
unstoppable force, immovable object
Hmm.
sort of situation. But the negative of that,
Yeah.
I think personally, if it is Caleb Williams' last game, I just think I don't think UCLA's offense has shown quite enough in recent weeks.
Hmm.
USC's defense has been not good, but they did hold Oregon to 36 technically. And I think it'll be tough for UCLA to crack 30 in general. I think Caleb Williams puts up more than that. I do probably see USC taking this game. I don't think it's going to be a barn burner like last year.
Hmm.
That's for sure. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I had been thinking about it just the last couple weeks. Anytime I'm listening to the radio or something like that, and I'm hearing just conversation about USC and stuff in general, and I'm like, I'm kind of looking forward to this game because one, you just never know in a rivalry game, but at the same time, I'm like, the big matchup is USC's offense and UCLA's defense. Unfortunately for UCLA, the defense is, I mean, they could score points, but they really haven't scored points. And that's more of the offensive job to do. So I just think that's going to be the downfall is the offense not being able to produce the points that a Chip Kelly offense is usually able to do. So I would definitely give the edge, I think, to USC in this matchup. Um, Again, it would be, I want to say a miracle, but I think a lot of things would have to work in UCLA's favor if they want to come out of this game victorious. But yeah, Luca, again, as we just kind of wrap things up, any final thoughts before we head on out of here?
I think it'll be interesting to see who wins the battle of fairly low stakes here. Well, we say fairly low stakes like in the
Hmm.
moment, but there are like very big program implications for
Yes,
both
no doubt
for
about it.
both schools that will come out of this. So it's almost like a win and you avoid some of some of the heat, some of the flack that'll come with a loss. There's not really a huge upside to winning this game. There's
Right.
only the upside is not losing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And for me, I think yeah, it's like you avoid the fallout and everything, at least for another week. For
Yeah, yeah,
UCLA at
exactly.
least, they still have to play Cal after this, and that's supposed to be senior night in a happy moment. But who knows where UCLA will be by the time they come out of this game. So with that being said, as I mentioned before, make sure you guys go to ocregister.com and we'll keep you updated on all the storylines that take place before this game, during this game, and after this game. Luca, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.